If there is one thing you need to get right with a project, whether it be woodworking, metalworking, or machining, it's whether it's square or not. Square being how close it is to a 90-degree angle, like this sample here. In this video, I'm going to show you 3 tools that will help you keep things square. Funny enough, they're called squares. And if you stick around to the end, I have a bonus one to show you. So let's get started. Now, like I said, there's 3 tools that every workshop needs, whether woodworking, metalworking, what have you. These are 3 basic squares to tell you if your project is at a 90 degree or not. The first one is a good speed square. Now, this is a square that's used mostly in framing. This is a 6-inch variety. It has a basic 90 degree and a basic 45 degree on it. And then you can get varying degrees between the two by lining it up away on the wood. It has a nice little built-in protractor. I like this because it's just a basic 90 degree. And if you get it in metal, it's very tough, it's very durable. You can throw it in your tool bag and what have you. You don't necessarily have to be framing for it. I like it for cutting with the circular saw, lining it up on the piece of wood and then running your circular saw blade along the edge of it to get a straighter cut. I like that a lot because a circular saw, you need a guide or it'll be a pretty ragged cut. So I like a good speed square. You can also use it for basic welding, you know, tack weld, you know, put it up against, bend it a little bit, you know, to get it at 90 degree tack weld. Don't get too close to it, you'll burn the square, but it's good for that. It's good for various other uses. So a good speed square is your first square that you need for your workshop. The second type of square that a workshop needs is a good combination square. A combination square is 2 parts, or 3 parts really. It's got like a little locking lug on it. And you can move it back and forth like that. Now, I like this. It's a little bit more precise than a speed square. You can adjust it if you have clearance issues. You can adjust the ruler part of it up and down. It also has a little level, but I hardly ever use the level. It has a 90 degree and a 45 degree only. Doesn't have a protractor like the speed square. However, I like it for doing doors. You can adjust it out just enough for like doing reveals on your trim. You know, adjust it out for 3/8 or so, or 1/4, and then you can put it up against in the door and mark it. So a good combination square, it's a little bit more precise than the speed square, has a little bit more of a different use than a speed square. So I consider this an important tool in my workshop. The third square on the list is a good framing square. Now, a framing square is 90 degrees only, and this one is 16 by 24. It's mainly used for framing. However, if you're doing cabinetry work or furniture work, you will need a good sized square like this to make sure that the boxes you're building are square. Or drawers, you know, if you get into good sized drawers, you'll need a square like this to be able to tell if you're at a 45 degree. Because if you get a cabinet box out of square or a drawer out of square, you have the potential of ruining that cabinet or piece of furniture. So a good framing square is good to have. Now, There's ones that are smaller, and sometimes those are handy. I think it's like 16 by 12 or so. But I don't use it as much. I use the big one, like this one. It's good for framing. It's good for layout if you're doing that kind of work. But it's also very good for telling if large objects are square. Because when you got a small square like this, you've got a lot of variation that can happen in that line. And that variation can be taken care of with this. So it's good to have a bigger square. So these are the 3 essential squares that you need for any workshop. And I would consider them must-haves. Now, one hint is to always buy metal. There are plastic versions of all of these out there, and you get what you pay for. The metal ones will last almost a lifetime or a lifetime, depends on how hard you are on them. So I would buy metal. And now for the 4th bonus square. This is a square that is good to have. Buy the first 3 first, because those are the ones you use the most. But a good machinist square is good to have. It's great to have in certain circumstances. These usually come in sets of 3 or 4 or 5 different sizes, and then there will be a little 45-degree one in too. But this is a great square to have when you really, really need it. These are precision squares, so they can be calibrated to tell you exactly the degrees that it's off from 90 degrees. So you can really be precise with these. And they're good for checking machined parts, for square on machined parts. And to really tell how close it is, put the square on the machine part, on the square part, and then look to see if you can see light coming through. If you can see light coming through, that means you've got a fraction of a degree off from true square. So these are good to have. They're relatively inexpensive and a good buy after you get those first 3. I hope this video clears up squares for you and helps you build a more precise project, whether it be cabinetry, machining, or whatever. I put links down below to some squares that I've chosen that would be good buys for a beginner or for an intermediate workshop. They're down below. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next.